Hello and welcome back to revise GCSE history.co.uk. In this video today we are going to be looking at treatments and public health in the medical renaissance, and in this video today is the third video in the topic of Renaissance medicine. What treatments did they use in the Renaissance? So methods of diagnosis and treatments in the Renaissance did not really change from the time of the Middle Ages. People still believed in the theory of the four humours, and doctors prescribed herbal medicines as opposites. If you can remember back to our last video, we said that... Sorry, it's not our last video. If you can remember back to the first video in the topic of Renaissance medicine, we said that there was a renewed faith in ancient learning, and this meant that the theory of the four humours and the treatment by opposites was still continued in the Renaissance. Doctors were unable to cure infectious disease and were powerless in treating diseases such as the plague and syphilis. That is a sexually transmitted disease that was present in the Renaissance. Some new drugs were developed, such as a drug for malaria, but these treatments were a mixture of superstitions, beliefs and errors. Superstition, that should say. Sorry, let me just change that. Superstition and errors. So as they say, they still had some supernatural beliefs. Although we have said in a previous video that they had more natural beliefs, they still had some supernatural beliefs. They thought that syphilis, a sexually transmitted disease, was a punishment from heaven, or caused by the position of the planet Saturn. So as they did in the Middle Ages and previous in the ancient world, people in the medical Renaissance still had some supernatural beliefs. Okay, so a treatment used in the Renaissance was the King's Evil, or scrofula. Scrofula is tuberculosis of the neck, and it was believed that the king or queen of England or France could cure the disease by simply touching the sufferer. It was called the King's Evil and is a good example of a supernatural cure used in the Renaissance. Between 1660 and 1682, Charles II touched over 92,000 people to try to cure them of scrofula. You don't particularly need to know that fact, that's just to show you how many people actually bought into this, that the king could cure the disease. And this source here shows Charles II touching people to cure them of the scrofula disease. Another treatment used was the Bezoar Stone. So bezoars were wanted because they were believed to have the power of a universal antidote. And an antidote is a medicine taken to counteract a poison, and a universal antidote is a medicine that can cancel out or counteract any poison at all. It was believed that a drinking glass which contained a bezoar would neutralise any poison poured into it. The word bezoar comes from the Persian language, and it literally means protection from poison. You don't need to know that point, that's just to give you a bit more background on things. I'll get rid of that bit because you don't necessarily need to know it. And in the 1500s, as we've said in a previous video, Paré actually proved that the Bezoar Stone isn't an effective treatment for poison in his experiment with a chef. And if you're unclear of that experiment that Paré did, check back to video 2 in the topic the medical renaissance, and that all will be explained there. Although, I think this is a particularly interesting source here. So ignore the other stuff. This is from the accounts by a doctor of King Charles II. So it's this one here that I want to look at. February the 6th, at 8 p.m. he was given 4 tablespoons of pearl julep and every other hour small amounts of Bezoar Stone. So in 1685, King Charles II was treated for poison by being given small amounts of Bezoar Stone. Paré proved that the Bezoar Stone isn't a treatment for poison in the 1500s, but yet in the late 1600s, King Charles II is still being treated using the Bezoar Stone to counteract poisoning. That source there, really helps to show how, although new discoveries were made, their theory was not exactly put into practice very often, and although ideas were proven to be futile and pointless, not getting anywhere, they were still carried out. It had been proven that the Bezoar Stone wouldn't treat the poison, but it was still done, as people are unsure of what else to do, and that source really helps to demonstrate that point. Public health in the Renaissance. Towns in the Renaissance were similar to towns in the Middle Ages. Towns and cities were filthy, with rubbish and human waste being thrown out into the city streets. There were many wars, and warfare gobbled up resources. Populations were beginning to increase. And more strain was placed on the available clean water supplies and sewage disposal systems. So public health was pretty bad. This is the real key point of this slide. Rubbish and human waste thrown into the street. So we've gone over all the key points you need to take away from this video today. Here are 4 quick questions just to go over the knowledge covered in today's video. You may wish to pause the video in this position and have a go at these questions yourselves. If not, carry on watching, we'll do them together. What ancient Greek theory did they still believe in the Renaissance? They believed in the theory of the 4 humours. Who could cure someone of their illness just by touching them? The king or queen. If you remember what countries though, I bet you remember that bit, but not this bit, of England or France. That was what they believed. Sorry, that says France, not very well written. Why were bezoars sought after in the Renaissance? They could treat any poison. Who proved that the Bezoar Stone isn't a treatment for poison? That was Ambroise Paré, and he proved that in an experiment with a chef who had been sentenced to execution. If you're not sure of Paré's experiment, check back to video 2 in the Medical Renaissance, and that video covers the stuff you need to know about Paré and him proving that the Bezoar Stone isn't a treatment for poison. So there are the answers to the 4 quick knowledge recall questions for this video. Thank you for watching this video today, and I do hope that you found it useful in your GCSE history revision. The next video in the topic, the Medical Renaissance, is a video on the Great Plague of 1665. Thanks for watching this video today, and if you found it useful, please head over to the website and tell your friends.